Hollis was the youngest admiral in the Alliance, a decorated war hero. And yet, he was forced to become my alpha. Right after we registered our marriage, he tossed aside the bouquet I'd brought him and took off the wedding ring. In a cold voice, he ordered, "Don't let anyone know you're my Omega. Stay away from me. Don't do anything pointless." Later, when the war was won, he stood frozen in the middle of the celebrating crowd. His eyes were red as he roared like a madman. "Where's my Omega? He still hasn't come back." Blood spread beneath his feet. I smiled weakly. It felt like there was no going back. If my death could end our marriage, the Admiral would probably be relieved. I'd been shot, blood pouring out fast, leaning hard against the wall. I forced myself to stay upright. I fumbled open my field medical kit, pulling out gauze to pack the wound. Even as a military doctor, I never thought I'd be using my own kit on myself. The adrenaline dulled the pain. I barely managed to stuff gauze into the wound under my ribs before I noticed I'd taken another hit in the thigh. My hands were losing strength. Before I could finish dressing the leg wound, my eyelids grew too heavy to keep open. My body felt lighter and lighter. When I opened my eyes again, I realized I was floating in midair, looking down at my own blood-soaked body. For a moment, I froze. Oh, right. Today's mission was a surprise attack. Our unit was tasked with wiping out an enemy camp and rescuing hostages. Not long ago, the enemy had hijacked a civilian passenger ship carrying our military families and stolen the black box. Oh, I wondered if the little girl I'd just rescued had managed to find Hollis and hand him the data module from the black box. I should go check. I drifted out of the room and toward the rendezvous point. From a distance, I saw Hollis. He was in a deep Navy combat uniform, standing at the front of the formation. His cap cast half his face in shadow, highlighting the sharp line of his jaw and the clear curve of his Adam's apple. Even without relying on his S-class alpha pheromones, he radiated an easy, oppressive authority. "Where's the field medic?" Hollis barked. "Step forward." In the tense silence, someone in the ranks stepped out. Orson. He was an Omega medic too, and my roommate. Hollis walked up to him and asked, "Where's Casper? Why didn't he return with you?" They were standing too close. Close enough to catch each other's scent. The last time I'd been this near to him, I'd caught it. That fresh, deep fragrance, like a pine forest after rain. It was Hollis's scent alone. Orson must have caught it too. His face flushed instantly. "I don't know," he replied. Then, in a much softer voice, "Casper's never been one to follow the rules. Maybe he ran off this time, afraid of getting hurt." "Is that so?" Hollis's tone didn't change. He turned and started walking back toward the front of the formation. I chased after him and grabbed at his sleeve. "That's not true. How could I ever desert? We'd been married for a year. How could he believe someone else over me, believe I was that kind of person?" But my hand only grasped empty air. I couldn't touch Hollis, and I couldn't explain myself to him. The truth was undeniable. Even after a year of marriage, Hollis didn't understand me at all. We were rarely alone together. And from the very start, he'd never wanted to be my alpha. The Alliance had a rule. High-ranking officers who reached a certain age would be forcibly paired with an Omega whose pheromones were highly compatible, to ensure the alpha's mind stayed calm and rational in wartime. And I just happened to be a 100% match for Hollis's pheromones. It was one of the few lucky breaks in my life. After my father died in battle, my mother's hospital bills had been covered entirely by the Alliance. So no matter who the council decided to marry me to, I wouldn't have objected. I just didn't expect it would be Hollis, the S-class alpha who'd once been awarded the Presidential Medal live on the Alliance's official broadcast. A war hero worshipped by countless people. On the day we registered, I was nervous and thrilled, like I'd just won the jackpot. I didn't expect to be doused with a bucket of cold water instead. No wedding, no permanent mark, only a single icy command. "Don't let anyone know you're my Omega. Stay away from me. Don't do anything pointless." I looked at the bouquet lying in the trash can and answered quietly, "Yes, Admiral." But before this mission, I think I might have ruined his order. The morning before the mission, Someone saw me leaving Hollis's private quarters. The marks on my skin could be hidden, but the thick alpha scent wrapped around me made it obvious to everyone. The soldiers were buzzing with gossip. Hollis was furious. After training, I locked myself in the dorm bathroom, clutching my phone and frantically typing. "Good day, Admiral. This is Casper. I sincerely apologize for what happened last night and this morning." Hollis probably thought it wasn't worth responding to. No reply. I shamelessly sent another message. "Don't worry. If anyone gets suspicious, I'll just say I was in your quarters to discuss important strategic intel." After half an hour of anxious waiting, I finally got a short text back. "When they recruited you into the team, did they forget to test your IQ?" Few words, and every one of them cutting. I thought for a moment, then typed again, full of confidence. "Then I'll just say the scent on me belongs to some other alpha. That way it won't have anything to do with you." My legs went numb from sitting, but the Admiral never replied again. I figured he must have been satisfied with my last suggestion. But soon, I realized I was being completely ignored. When soldiers saluted Hollis, he nodded back. When he saw me, no nod, not even a glance. He just walked right past me as if deaf and blind. Clearly, Hollis still hadn't forgiven me. He really didn't want anyone knowing we were connected. But last night, we'd already. The assembly horn blew. Time for the assault to begin. I rode with the advance team in an armored vehicle to the target site. When the doors opened, Hollis stood tall at the entrance, slapping hands with each soldier as they jumped down. It was an unspoken tradition in the Alliance Army, a gesture wishing for a smooth mission and safe return. I was last in line. I wiped my palm on the front of my uniform and got into position for a high five. But when it was my turn, Hollis's hand swerved smoothly away. He adjusted his cap instead, looking straight at my raised palm and the stiff smile on my lips. The Admiral was impossible to placate. I forced out a polite but awkward smile, curling my hand into a fist to quietly cheer myself on. If I'd gotten that high five from Hollis, maybe I wouldn't have gotten hurt. I floated in front of Hollis, thinking that at exactly the wrong time. "Casper, respond if you hear me." Hollis was calling my name into the comms. After repeating it twice, he frowned, pressing his lips together, just as a faint noise came through the earpiece. 4. The wind fell silent, allowing Hollis to hear more clearly. It was the sound of an electric current. "Casper, do you copy?" This time, Hollis's tone grew a bit sharp as it had been when he called my name the previous night. In fact, that night his tone had gone through several changes. In the middle of the night, when he saw me suddenly barge into the dormitory, he had been shocked. Then he realized I was in a dazed, heat-stricken state. He tried to wake me with a cold voice. The battle-hardened Admiral failed. He lowered his voice and called my name sharply. Then he ordered me not to move. The whole process is better left unexamined. Any single frame of it replayed in my mind makes me want to leave this planet immediately. When I came to, I was sitting up in the mess of the bed. It was that time between night and dawn, light just beginning to creep in, and he wasn't there. From the washroom came the sound of running water. I looked up and saw Hollis's back. His upper body was bare, the lines of his muscles deep and rugged like mountain ridges. He was carefully, meticulously, washing his fingers. I bowed my head and buried my face in the blanket. My cheeks and the glands at the back of my neck burned all over again. A dozen seconds later, I got up, found my clothes, dressed, and walked to the washroom door. I stammered an apology. "Admiral, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to make you. Casper, I told you not to do meaningless things." Hollis shut off the tap and walked past me, speaking coldly. "I won't mark you, because this war will be over soon. When that happens, we'll dissolve the marriage." I knew I had no reason to feel sad, but I couldn't help it. My throat suddenly tightened, making it impossible to speak. Hollis had every reason to be angry. It was entirely my fault. I hadn't expected my heat to flare up again just one day after it ended. I had broken my promise to stay far away from Hollis. But at this point, it looked like there wouldn't be another situation like this again, because it seemed we wouldn't even need to go through divorce procedures. I just wondered, when Hollis received his Medal of Honor as the bereaved spouse of a fallen soldier? Would he keep a stony face the whole time? He'd probably refuse to attend at all. I thought. The communicator still gave no response. Hollis clenched his jaw. He gave the order. Full search and secure the hostages. If you find Casper, bring him to me immediately. The team dispersed quickly and in perfect order. Hollis stood alone on the now empty grassland, then suddenly turned. He looked in my direction and said, "What are you doing here?" I sucked in a sharp breath, eyes widening at him. Could it be Hollis could see me? 5. Admiral, can I ask you something? I spun around and saw Orson standing behind me. His gaze passed straight through me and locked on Hollis. Ask. Hollis's voice was cold. People are saying Casper is your Omega. Is it true? Orson's eyes flickered. He seemed desperate to know the answer, yet afraid of it. I stood between them, like a war criminal awaiting judgment. Who? Hollis's gaze darkened, his brow furrowed, and his voice turned sharp, spreading meaningless rumors in the Alliance military. Do you want to end up in the brig? Hollis was angry. His tone was fierce. But Orson didn't seem afraid. In fact, he looked pleased. He smiled and said, I knew it couldn't be true. Then he ran off into the jungle. Leaves, stirred by the wind, drifted down through my body. It didn't hurt. There was only emptiness inside me. Yet I still felt the sting of humiliation. It was only natural. I lowered my head, thinking, Hollis had no reason to publicly clear my name. Even if I was mistaken for a disreputable Omega. Wasn't it all my own doing? But why had I barged into Hollis's room during heat? I thought about it for a long time, still with no answer. Just like that night a month ago. Drunk, on the eve of departure. I remembered nothing. At that moment, a soldier came running over, saluted Hollis, and said, Report, all captured hostages have been rescued. Ready to evacuate. My heart skipped a beat, and I blurted out, The little girl, she's back safe? Then why hadn't she given the storage device to Hollis? Had it been lost along the way? No one could answer me. Good. Hollis's voice was low. Proceed with the evacuation. No, not yet. If that little girl was left behind, it would be a disaster. I followed the soldier into the jungle, only to spot Orson halfway there. He was crouched low in the grass, as if he had sighted a suspicious target. Come out. Orson suddenly stood and shouted, I can see you. A few seconds later, a little girl jumped out of the bushes and bolted in the opposite direction. It was her, the little girl I had saved. She was safe, but a 6 or 7-year-old couldn't outrun a trained Alliance soldier. Within 10 meters, Orson had her pinned to the ground. The storage device in her hand fell and skidded across the dirt. Orson's eyes lit up. He lifted the little girl and asked, Where did you get this? Terrified, she began to cry softly. It was a big brother with a Red Cross armband, an Omega. He told me to give it to the Admiral. But I don't know what the Admiral looks like. Are you a good person? Please, go save that brother. He's hurt. Orson quickly covered her mouth with his hand. After glancing around to confirm no one was near, he whispered, I know the Admiral. I can give this to him for you. And I'll go save that brother too. But you can't tell anyone what happened today. Okay. The little girl nodded, and Orson let her go. He handed her over to the officer in charge of the hostages, then headed toward Hollis. Almost safe, I thought. Admiral, Orson shouted, waving his arms, face full of excitement. He ran up to Hollis, forgetting even to salute. I found the storage device from the black box. Hollis's expression sharpened. He took it and examined it, asking, a bit urgently, Where did you find it? Did Casper bring it back? No. Orson paused, lowering his voice. I just found it at the firefight site, probably dropped by fleeing enemies. Orson, I ran up to him, shouting in shock. Why are you lying? Hollis, don't believe him. Hollis's face darkened. He looked at Orson and said, Is that so? Looks like you're in luck. He slipped the storage device into his pocket and asked, Any news of Casper? Orson was silent for a few seconds. In the end, he shook his head. No. 6. The night before, when I came back from Hollis's dorm, I ran into Orson. He looked at me in surprise, then glanced toward the end of the stairs. All the alphas lived downstairs, including Hollis. He had never talked much to me. And now, as if avoiding suspicion, he quickly looked away and left without another word. When I returned to the dorm, he told me, "In just half an hour, the whole team is talking about what happened to you today." Orson was furious. "Some are even saying you came out of the Admiral's room. The Admiral is an upright man. You'd better tell everyone the truth right away. Don't tarnish his name." So, was that why Orson kept the truth hidden? Because he hated me? So he didn't want me to be rescued? But now, none of that really mattered anymore. Because I might not even have a chance to survive. "Anything else?" Hollis asked Orson. Orson looked up. "Admiral, I found the storage device. If it counts as merit, may I ask you a question?" "Hollis, go ahead. What kind of Omega will you marry in the future?" As soon as Orson finished, noises broke out in the distance. It was the families of rescued military dependents being reunited. Crying and laughter mixed together. Impossible to hold back, stirring anyone who heard it. Hollis looked toward the sound. His expression softened. "One I really like. I suppose, by reason, I shouldn't have felt sad. Because I'd always known I wasn't the one Hollis liked. Being naturally optimistic, I had thought that after a long time of understanding and companionship, he would one day acknowledge and accept me. But now, hearing him say he wanted to marry someone he liked, I suddenly realized I seemed to have become an obstacle to Hollis's happiness. He could have found the Omega he truly desired, fallen in love, proposed, formed a lifelong bond, gone through each traditional step with a sense of ceremony, not been forcefully matched with me as his alpha, not forced to carry an undeserved regret. It was time to give up. I told myself, want less, it hurts less. The noise soon faded. A captain ran over to report. "Admiral, all personnel assembled. Should we return to base?" "Sir." Hollis nodded and picked up his communicator. His tone, as if out of patience. "Casper, I hope you're not doing this just to get my attention. Come back now, it's not too late. If I catch you, you're out of the Alliance Army." Silence on the other end. Hollis told the captain, "Take the team and the families back to base. The rest of you, come with me into the camp to search." "Admiral," Orson said urgently, "if we don't follow the informant's route, we'll likely run into traps or bombs. It's too dangerous. Casper isn't worth this risk." "Orson." Hollis cut him off sharply, his voice ringing like a command. "Say one more word, and you're back in the brig." Orson's eyes reddened instantly. He pressed his lips tight and stayed silent, just following behind Hollis toward the camp. As we were about to enter the camp's gate, we crossed paths with the returning convoy. At that moment, a little girl at the very end of the column suddenly turned around. She ran over and tugged at Hollis's sleeve. "You're the Admiral, right?" She looked up, timid but certain. Hollis crouched down to meet her eyes. "Yes." The girl stuffed a crumpled object from her palm into his hand. "This was stuck to my brother's clothes. He put his clothes on me and told me not to take them off. Then he got hurt. There was so much blood." Her voice grew smaller and smaller. Her reddened eyes stared up as she asked, "Did you find him? He's not dead, right?" Hollis glanced at the black vest she wore. For the first time, a look of confusion appeared on his face. Then, he unfolded the piece of fabric in his hand. It was a military ID patch from the chest of a bulletproof vest. The number printed on it, 96511. Hollis's fingertips suddenly trembled. In a barely audible and disbelieving voice, he said my name. "Casper. 7. Where is he?" Hollis gripped the little girl's shoulders tightly, his urgency nearly incoherent. "Where is he hurt?" Frightened, the girl burst into tears, shaking her head. "I don't know. He was covered in blood, lying on the ground. Couldn't get up." Through her tears, she looked at Orson and cried, "You liar. You said you'd save my brother. You didn't. Give me back the treasure my brother gave you." Hollis frowned. "What treasure?" "It's a small hard plate. My brother said it had something important saved inside, and told me to bring it to you. Hollis's head snapped up, eyes blazing red with fury. He fixed Orson with a deadly glare and roared. Everyone, stay close to me, into the camp. Now. They moved quickly. Hollis carried the little girl at the front, leading the way. After skirting a few makeshift traps, Hollis stopped, breathing lightly. He asked the girl in his arms, "Do you remember the route you took when you escaped?" Following the little girl's gaze, I saw a maze-like block of residential houses. Low, earth-colored buildings, tightly packed together. Most walls were scarred with bullet holes and damage. Under the bleak wind, they looked like rows of tombs. "What should we do?" The little girl began to cry again. I didn't remember it. The area was littered with buried mines and explosives. Entering blindly was suicide. That was probably why the enemy hadn't chased me down to silence me. Hollis handed the girl to the soldiers, telling them to wait there. "I'll find him," he said seriously, turning back to her. "Don't cry." I watched him charge into the winding alleys, and in my mind, the face of a younger Hollis appeared. "Don't cry." He had said that to me once, long ago. 8. My first meeting with Hollis had not been pleasant. That day, I had received a folded military flag, placed neatly in a square wooden box, in place of my father's ashes. My mother was in the hospital, seriously ill. At 10 years old, I sat alone on the flower bed outside the hospital, holding that box. I needed to finish crying quickly, then leave the box with the doctor, so I could return to my mother's ward. But halfway through my tears, a boy stood before me and said stiffly, "Don't cry." He looked a few years older than me, wearing an outfit much like a uniform, his black leather shoes polished bright. His face was serious as he said, "Your father is a hero. You should be proud of him." I nodded, but my tears kept falling. A crease formed between his brows, as if he'd encountered a problem. Hesitantly, awkwardly, he raised a hand to wipe my tears. "Hollis." Hearing someone call, he turned and ran to the military vehicle parked at the hospital entrance. The officer who had come to deliver the flag opened the door for him. It should have been a brief and ordinary encounter. Hollis surely forgot it long ago. But in my memory, it had replayed countless times, until the figure of that boy overlapped with the man now running through the winding alleys. Only this time, it would be me who was leaving. Hollis kept running, searching house by house. When he neared the edge of the residential area, there was a sudden boom. A buried mine went off. The dust was quickly blown away by the wind, revealing Hollis's dirt-smeared, stunned face. He looked toward a low house whose wall had been blown open. Struggling to get up, he fell again. Blood trailed from his temple. Hollis didn't seem to notice, stumbling inside, and collapsed to his knees before my body. He had found me, but I didn't know if it was already too late. 9. If I were to take the images of Hollis stored in my mind and turn them into still photos, they'd probably fall into two categories based on his expressions. The cold, solemn, no-nonsense Officer Hollis, and the alpha Hollis who, even after intimacy, was always irritated by me. But now, he showed a look I'd never seen before. His eyes were wide and blank, lips and fingertips trembling. It was fear. Could Hollis, who had faced death countless times, also feel fear? He raised a hand, but didn't dare touch me. I lay against the wall. A large pool of blood spread beneath me. No signs of life. Normally, Hollis would check my breathing and carotid pulse to confirm death. But he didn't. Instead, he used a bandage near my hand to wrap my leg wound and stop the bleeding. Then he scooped me up in his arms and rushed back along the way we came. We soon left the residential area. The waiting team had brought an armored vehicle and stopped at the camp entrance. Hollis just placed me on the stretcher inside the vehicle when Orson lunged forward to check my wounds. "Get away." Hollis threw him off like a wild beast. "Don't you dare touch him." Orson collapsed onto the ground, choking back tears. He needs hemostatic medicine. The armored vehicle sped toward the base, the bumps causing my body to shake constantly. Hollis snatched the medicine from Orson's hand, gently cradling my head. He cut open my clothes with scissors from the medical kit, exposing the rough, stuffed wound. Years of marching had made Hollis skilled at treating injuries. But when spraying disinfectant and powdering the wound, his hands shook, wasting much medicine. The atmosphere in the vehicle was heavy and oppressive. Not a single soldier dared speak. Only the little girl spoke in a trembling voice. "Will my brother die? Did he die because he saved me?" "No," Hollis said, head bowed, voice very soft. "He won't die." I sat beside the sobbing girl, wanting to tell her my injury wasn't her fault. At that time, most of the enemy troops had been captured, and the hostages were moved out of the camp. After briefly bandaging a soldier with a leg wound, I found the little girl in a cluttered low house. She was terrified, had forgotten her name. I told her that if she could be just a little braver, the nightmare would end. I took off my bulletproof vest and put it on her, then asked if anyone else was hiding nearby. She thought for a moment and said a few bad men stayed behind, using a noisy machine to cut something. They hadn't escaped, hiding in nearby houses. The black box wasn't easy to carry. They must have cut it out with a chainsaw and taken the storage device. I wanted to escort the girl out and report back. But just then, the men with the storage device ran the opposite way. The device contained flight routes between bases and precise base coordinates. It must never fall into enemy hands. Without thinking, I fired my gun. After getting the device, several enemy soldiers suddenly counterattacked. Outnumbered and outgunned, I ran with the girl deeper into the houses. I was shot under my ribs and in the thigh. We hid in a low house and were not pursued further. I tried to contact Hollis, but there seemed to be a signal blockade inside the camp. My communicator was useless. The child was light and unlikely to trigger bombs. I handed the device to her, telling her to leave through the window, run out of the camp, and find the Admiral. "What does the Admiral look like?" The girl asked nervously, timid but curious. I was bleeding, but hadn't felt pain yet. I smiled weakly and said softly, "The tallest, most handsome alpha, but the unhappiest looking." "Why is he unhappy?" "Because of me." I began to feel cold. "He's mad at me, and he hasn't forgiven me yet. That's why he wouldn't look at me, wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't even high-five or shake hands with me." 10. The armored vehicle went straight to the base hospital. Several military doctors waited at the door and rushed me into the emergency room. Hollis, covered in blood, stood rigid outside the ER. After a while, a small group of people, some of the rescued military families, flooded into the adjacent ward area. Many wounded soldiers came out wrapped in bandages, joyfully embracing their omegas. For a moment, the hallway was filled with couples reunited, holding each other tightly, laughing or crying. Some alphas loudly thanked God, kissing their omegas in their arms, saying, "Thank God you're safe. You came back." That joyful, warm atmosphere seemed separated from Hollis by an invisible wall. Hollis stared blankly at them. Then suddenly, he bent down and knelt on the ground, letting out a painful, hoarse moan. "What about my omega? Casper, don't leave. I beg you." The soldiers nearby heard this and looked shocked. Orson's eyes widened, and he stepped back, hitting the wall, shaking his head. He said, "That's impossible." Hollis suddenly stood up and pinned Orson against the wall with his elbow, growling fiercely, "You better pray Casper is safe. Otherwise, I'll make you pay with your life." He watched Orson's face turn from pale to deep purple, then abruptly let go. Several soldiers hurried over, pulling the choking Orson off the floor and dragging him away. I looked at the tense Hollis, confusion growing inside me. Was he worried about me? But why? Hollis had seen many sacrifices. He was usually calm after a soldier's death, handling the aftermath without showing much grief. Besides, I was just his omega in name. He didn't love me, did he? "Are you angry again?" The little girl looked up at Hollis, innocently asking. Hollis seemed not to hear, asking hoarsely, "What?" "Brother said you're mad at him and unhappy." The girl said, "Do you treat him like that when you're angry?" Hollis looked at her, his face pale. After a moment, he looked back toward the ER doors, his eyes reddening. "No," Hollis said softly. "I'm not mad at him. I'm just confused about myself." "So, He fell silent, his Adam's apple moving as he swallowed hard. He added, "When I see him again, I'll tell him the truth." Suddenly, the ER doors opened, and a doctor rushed out, interrupting him. "Casper may not hold on much longer. Can you notify his family quickly?" Hollis stared blankly, whispering, "How could he not hold on? How could?" The doctor, puzzled by Hollis's reaction, said, "His heartbeat has stopped, but we'll keep trying to revive him for another 40 minutes. His heartbeat had stopped? I was about to leave. I looked at Hollis, who stared blankly at the ER doors. Suddenly, a faint blue glow began to radiate from him, spreading from his body. Hollis's breathing sped up, his face flushed as if burning with heat. Then commotion broke out in the hallway. Beta doctors and nurses guided alphas and omegas downstairs. As a soul, I couldn't smell, but I saw invisible pheromone particles. Hollis had triggered a severe heat cycle. Within a minute, the blue glow had turned into deep blue flames, as if about to envelop him completely. He collapsed to his knees, biting his teeth. Beta doctors injected him with suppressants. But Hollis was in a frenzy, throwing one person several meters away. He stood up slowly and walked toward the ER, finally stopping at the door. He pressed his forehead hard against it, almost pleading, screaming, "Casper, give me one more chance, please." At that moment, I seemed to smell a faint scent of pine. My soul grew lighter. The scent of a pine forest after rain became strong and intense. The next second, I was pulled into a dark vortex. 11. Third-person perspective. Hollis eventually passed out. Like a wild beast, he was held down and injected with a powerful suppressant, then strapped to a hospital bed in isolation. Most of the time, he struggled restlessly, then drifted into short, fragmented dreams. He dreamed of being taken to the military camp by his father as a child, making a naive vow to become a soldier. The scene shifted. Hollis was a teenager. He saw a small pale boy sitting silently by a hospital flower bed, crying, thin and delicate, holding a dark wooden box representing sacrifice. The first time Hollis tried to comfort someone, he was awkward and stiff. He was there to accompany his father, a colonel, to deliver the wooden box. He understood why the boy was crying. But as an alpha, Hollis was naturally lacking in empathy. He believed he understood the cruelty of war, which was why he told the boy to be proud of his fallen family member with such solemnity. Ironically, shortly after Hollis enlisted, his mother died at home from illness. The war had just begun. Servants scattered. Hollis and his father were too busy on the battlefield. The news of his mother's death came a month later during a ceasefire. Looking out at the ruined walls, Hollis first truly felt the harsh reality of war. It was a cruel, monstrous force, disrupting the world's order, trampling everyone's lives indiscriminately. Why hadn't he taken better care of his mother? Hollis was filled with overwhelming guilt. He made a decision. When the war ended, he would retire and tend his mother's grave for 10 years. His father didn't immediately stop him upon hearing this. But soon after, Hollis received a forced matching notice from the Alliance Council. He knew. His father wanted to hold him back with an Omega's scent and family ties. That was why Hollis resisted Casper. Deliberately cold and even hurtful. It was better than losing both father and husband. Hollis thought. Things must have gradually gone off track. He couldn't say when he began noticing Casper, but he clearly remembered the night before he left. At a banquet, Casper got drunk. He blocked an alpha who had left early in the corridor behind the venue. Maybe it took drunken courage. The Omega's cheeks were flushed, and he slurred, "You've toasted with them all, but not with me." Hollis stood silently in front of him, caught the scent of honeysuckle mixed faintly with alcohol. The alpha frowned, sternly saying, "You can't drink anymore." "Oh," the Omega replied dumbly, then slowly walked closer. The corridor was dim, moonlight filtering through tangled vines and casting light on Casper's face. He stopped, standing very close to Hollis, boldly violating the post-marriage order the Admiral had given. But the Admiral neither scolded nor stepped back, because he saw Casper's moist eyes. Tears weren't falling one by one. They pooled in the eyes. Just before spilling, a blink, Hollis's reflection in Casper's eyes became clear, then quickly melted back into a blur of shimmering water. Casper's long eyelashes blinked slowly, casting shadows on his clean face. When the music paused at the banquet, Casper closed his eyes. He leaned in slowly, tilting his head, pressing trembling, soft lips against Hollis's cheek. Hollis turned his head slightly, and Casper kissed his lips instead. Casper held his arm, but didn't grip tightly. Hollis didn't resist, letting Casper clumsily, slowly, awkwardly, imbue himself with the scent of honeysuckle. Likewise, Casper was scented with strong pine resin. Shortly after, Casper stormed into Hollis's room in heat. The Omega forgot what happened while drunk, so he was confused about why he'd come to Hollis so suddenly. But Hollis knew. The perfect match pheromone had already been planted like a seed in the Omega's body the night before departure. Once desire rose, the body's instinct would lead him to the alpha. In the dream, Hollis wanted to explain, but the scene changed to an enemy camp in the forest. Warriors cheered for victory. Alphas hugged their Omegas. Only he stood stiff and out of place among the crowd. His eyes red. He finally shouted wildly, "My Omega, where is he? He hasn't returned yet." 12. In the chaos, I seemed to hear low, painful roars repeatedly. When I opened my eyes, my brain slowly rebooted like a machine powering on. A white ceiling, and a face from distant memories. "Casper," a deep voice said, "you're finally awake." I stared blankly at the shoulder insignia on his uniform. After a moment, I recognized him. He was Commander Galen, the one who had handed me the wooden box with the military flag years ago, and also Hollis's father. I wanted to greet him, but only moved my lips without making a sound. The commander sat on a chair by the bed. He said, "You retrieved the storage device and made a great achievement. You can make a request of the Alliance Army. Go ahead, even if you want Hollis to take a month off to care for you." I blinked slowly, hearing noise from the next ward. When the ward door was slammed open, I used the little strength I had left and croaked, "I want to end the marriage with the Admiral." The person who burst and seemed stunned paused, then staggered forward. Standing before me, I barely recognized Hollis. His eyes bloodshot, face pale to an alarming degree. His beard was unshaven for a long time, looking disheveled. His scent was faint, almost undetectable. The commander frowned and glanced at him. "Why? Is that brat treating you badly? I'll deal with him for you." "No." I didn't want to trouble Hollis. I made up a careless lie. "It's me. I want to marry someone I love." The commander's face darkened, but he said nothing more. So I looked at Hollis. Struggling, I managed a faint smile under the oxygen mask, like silently comforting him. "It's okay. I can say it better, so the commander wouldn't be angry with him. If I meet someone I like later, I can remarry openly. It's okay." I told myself again. 13. The commander seemed to agree to my request. But strangely, Hollis didn't show any signs of relief or happiness because of it. He placed my hospital bed inside my room and administered my suppressant injections on time every day. He took full charge of my daily care, feeding me, giving me water, helping me wash and clean. His attentiveness surpassed even that of the nursing staff. When removing drainage tubes or changing dressings, Hollis would carefully release a small amount of pheromones to soothe my pain. Perhaps it was a sense of duty toward his legal Omega. I tried to rationalize his unusual behavior, telling myself, this is what any alpha would do, it's nothing special. One night, I woke up. I saw Hollis quietly watching me. His gaze was complicated, as if counting my breaths to make sure I was really alive. The air was still for half a minute before Hollis spoke first. "Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere?" I shook my head, then looked up at the ceiling, softly saying, "Admiral, you really don't need to do this. My request for divorce was voluntary. It wasn't because of what you said that morning." Hollis sat up straight, frowning slightly, looking at me seriously. I felt like I was trying to cover something up, struggling to sit up. I said, "It's true. No need to wait for the war to end. Tomorrow. We can. Don't move." Hollis came over, pressed my shoulder down, making me lie back on the bed. His palm was broad and rough, calloused from handling a gun. The warmth and texture pressed through my hospital gown, instantly making my shoulder and face flush hot. Hollis stared at my face for a moment, then suddenly asked, "Do you have a fever?" He then covered my forehead with his entire palm. His hand was so large it almost covered half my face, and he didn't move it for a long while. I was too uneasy to move, awkwardly saying, "Your hand's too hot. I can't really tell. So please take it away." "Admiral, is that so?" Hollis's voice was deep and close to my ear, almost vibrating it numb. Finally, his large hand left, but a larger shadow fell over me. Hollis bent down and kissed my temple. I froze in bed, quickly arguing with myself. He couldn't possibly be kissing me. He was just testing my temperature with his lips. But the test seemed to be taking a bit too long. I blinked cautiously, saying, I don't have a fever." Fortunately, Hollis finally got up, letting me breathe more freely. "You must be busy. You don't need to stay here to take care of me. I won't regret asking for a divorce, so you don't have to continue fulfilling your alpha duties." Hollis lowered his gaze to me, listening patiently. Then his expression darkened. "Are you trying to send me away?" I dared not look at him, growing sleepy. Half closing my eyes, I curled under the covers and shook my head. "We'll talk after you recover and leave the hospital," Hollis said softly. "Go to sleep." The scent of the pine forest after rain drifted again from Hollis, gently enveloping me. It stole away my will to argue, and I soon fell peacefully asleep. A month later, discharged, I returned to my dorm and was surprised to find 2 alpha soldiers living there. Hollis caught up from behind, carrying bags, and said, "The military families have arrived, so the dorms were rearranged." Then where's my dorm now? Probably because my leg was still healing, Hollis supported my arm, leading me upstairs, saying, "From now on, you'll live with me." I stopped at the stair landing, looking at Hollis beside me. He was much taller, looking down into my eyes. I gently pulled my arm free, stepped up another stair, and met his gaze evenly. "No." 14. Hollis lowered his eyes to his empty palm, seeming stunned for a moment, then asked softly, "Why?" Early autumn sunlight streamed through the window at the stair landing. Half of Hollis's face was shadowed by his prominent nose, expression unreadable. I used to be afraid of this question, but now somehow felt a bit braver. So I said, "We're about to end our marriage soon. Living together would be inconvenient. He's already been forced to stay with me at the hospital for so long. If we lived together again now, it would be unbearable. And I didn't want to be controlled by pheromones anymore." Hollis slowly dropped his hand and clenched it into a fist by his side. Looking away, he said, "But the dorms are all full now. There are no extra rooms." I looked at his profile and said, "That's okay. It's still early. I can find a hotel in the city for a night. My leg can't handle heavy training anymore. So I applied for a job at the military hospital in the city center while I was hospitalized. I'll start soon." I saw surprise on Hollis's face, smiled lightly, and reached for his luggage, asking, "Can you arrange a car to take me to the city?" Hollis didn't answer or loosen his grip. After a few tense seconds, he asked, "Can't you stay with the Alliance Army? If you don't like hospital work." "I can. I like it." I released his hand to avoid contact, smiling. "I'll study for my master's while working in clinical practice. That way, even if I'm not on the battlefield, I can still help many people." Hollis stared at me straight on, as if seeing me smile for the first time. "Admiral?" He paused, then grabbed his luggage and went downstairs. "I'll take you." Hollis took me to a hotel near the military hospital and paid for a week's stay. After putting my luggage in the room, Hollis stood on the rug at the entrance, hesitating. "Admiral, it's late. Please drive carefully back." He stood quietly, the dim light casting shadows on his shoulders. His tone was stiff. "Your leg hasn't been massaged today." I felt the room get warmer and hurried. "I can do it myself. You should go." No one orders Hollis around. He came over and said, "It needs hot compress first." And can you guarantee your technique and pressure are correct? Hollis blocked some of the light, casting a shadow over me. Yes. I turned my head away, saying, I'm a military doctor. Have you forgotten? The room was silent for a few seconds before I suddenly said, You don't have to leave either. I looked up, seeing a spark in Hollis's eyes. I added, That way, we can go register the divorce together tomorrow. 15. I don't know why, but whenever divorce registration came up, Hollis suddenly got busy. The night I checked into the hotel, he said he had an early meeting the next day. He sent messages daily asking about my diet and rest, but always refused my request to finalize the divorce quickly, citing being busy. By the time I had worked at the military hospital for a week, the admiral still hadn't found time to divorce. When I considered going to the commander directly to request a council decree, Hollis suddenly showed up at the hospital. I was talking to an alpha doctor then. Looking up, I saw Hollis standing coldly in the ward corridor, his gaze fixed on the alpha doctor beside me. I smiled and waved goodbye to the doctor, then walked over to Hollis, asking, Are you here to get the divorce? His face darkened further. He frowned and looked down. I'm sick. Came to see a doctor. But the base has military doctors. I tilted my head, looking at his face. Is it a serious illness? His face really did look a bit flushed. Hollis covered his mouth and coughed. A cold. I straightened up, hands in my white coat pockets, and said seriously, Driving 2 hours with a cold to an overcrowded military hospital seems like a waste of resources. Admiral, I want you to treat me. I was stunned, unavoidably recalling the past. When he was injured, I was always the first to notice. Even standing far away, I could hear his suppressed cough, then hand cold medicine to his guards. But now, Admiral, you should register in internal medicine. I looked at his stiffened face. I'm a surgeon now, I can't treat you. Saying that, I headed straight to the office. Passing by, my arm was gently grabbed. Casper. Saying that name seemed to take great effort for Hollis. He whispered painfully, Actually, I just wanted to see you. Why did he want to see me? Maybe it was the habit formed after the forced matching. But since I was giving up, I calmly said, Admiral, please find time soon to register the divorce. Don't waste time on meaningless things. 16. Not long after that day, Hollis came back to the hospital again. His arm bore a deep wound, visible down to the bone. We looked at each other from opposite ends of the corridor. He said a few hurried words to the doctor rushing to his side, then looked back at me as if completely unaware of the bleeding wound. I smelled a faint scent of pine resin. The glands at the back of my neck began to quietly warm. The doctor called the internal line and said, Casper, the Admiral specifically requested you to clean and stitch his wound. I looked at Hollis's dark silhouette and told the person on the phone, Please apologize to the Admiral for me. I'm currently in surgery and have no time. I hung up and took the elevator straight up. When the elevator doors closed, they shut out Hollis's burning gaze and the pheromones leaking from his blood. After this, I applied to be transferred to support the Southern Theater City Hospital. On the day my application was approved, I texted Hollis, Admiral, I will soon be heading to the Southern Theater. Please go to the council tomorrow morning to finalize our divorce. 2 hours passed with no reply from Hollis. I called him. The call was quickly answered. Admiral, hello. Do you have time tomorrow? Casper. Hollis interrupted. Are you leaving because of me? I paused, then answered, Yes. The situation in the South is unstable. Hollis's voice was breathless. I'll agree to whatever you want. Just don't go south. Okay. I stood in a quiet hallway, feeling his voice grow closer on the other end. Casper. I heard an echo. Looking up, I saw Hollis standing at the corner of the lower stairs, looking up at me. Casper. He called me again, his tone filled with a compromise and plea I'd never heard before. Please don't go. Okay. Perhaps due to panting or nerves, his chest rose and fell violently. The bandage wrapped around his right arm was soaked with blood, showing a bright red stain. I didn't answer. Instead, I asked, Can we register tomorrow? Hollis pressed his lips together, struggling to speak. Actually, I know everything you said to Orson. I cut him off and continued. You deny our relationship, believe his words, and think I'm a deserter. You even told him you want to marry the Omega you like. So, Admiral, please stop doing meaningless things. Now it's me who no longer trusts you. Hollis stared at me, his lips moving but no words came out. When I turned to leave, he suddenly spoke. All right, I'll be there on time tomorrow. Thank you. I exhaled in relief and heard Hollis say painfully, I'm sorry. The next day, I waited early outside the council office. But Hollis didn't show up. He didn't reply to messages, and wouldn't answer calls either. Near the end of the workday, I got a call from one of Hollis's guards. Casper, the Admiral was in a car accident on the way here. Seriously injured, and can't make it. 17. I thought, he's lying again. Hollis really is unreliable. Please tell the Admiral that childish tricks like this are long outdated. I was genuinely angry and said sharply, tell him to come register immediately. There was silence on the other side before a choked voice said, the Admiral really can't come now. Admiring the guard's acting skills but furious, I stormed back to the hospital. Upon entering, I heard an urgent broadcast on the communicator. Emergency notice, all attending surgeons, internists, and ICU doctors. Please report immediately to the ER for rescue operations. My heart skipped a beat. Putting on my white coat, I ran toward the ER, pulling a colleague and asking, what happened? Car accident, it seems. He ran while speaking. An officer was driving into the city and discovered some enemy soldiers holding hostages. The hostages were rescued, but the officer was hit by a car. I heard he was barely breathing when he arrived. My heart suddenly stopped, and I nearly collided with a passerby. Sorry, I said hurriedly, but no one replied. Suddenly I remembered. Hollis's last words, I'm sorry, seemed to be directed at me, and I hadn't replied. A strange tightening gripped my chest. Frowning, I found myself already at the ER entrance. Casper, please save the Admiral. I was stunned, looking at the guard in front of me. Tears streamed down his face as he sobbed. They told me to notify the commander, that the Admiral is close to death. It hit me like a thunderclap. I mechanically pushed open the ER door, struck by a tidal wave of pine resin scent. The sight was blood red. Huge pools of Hollis's blood covered the floor. So much blood, he would die from this. My body suddenly grew hot, and my head started to spin. The monitors and emergency machines beeped in a rising and falling chorus, fading into a muffled background sound. I staggered forward, still moving toward him, and saw Hollis's pale, peaceful face. I seemed to call his name, but no sound came out. Why were you dying? You hadn't divorced me yet. Were you pretending to be injured because you didn't want a divorce? Right? It must be true. So let's not divorce. Okay, get up now. We won't divorce. Okay, why are you still lying there? Not getting up? Hollis, you're so cruel. Why won't you even give me the chance to hate you or take revenge? It hurts so much. My heart feels like it's breaking. My glands burn, like being scorched by fire. I leaned slowly toward Hollis, letting the honeysuckle scent blend with the pine resin. The monitor by his bed showed 3 straight lines. Someone removed the respirator from Hollis's face. He was given up on. My alpha. Abandoned by everyone. But he was still my alpha. So, I was very close to him. I bent down and gently kissed his forehead, his brows and eyes, the tip of his nose, and finally, his soft but slightly cool lips. Tears ran down my cheek, flowing between our touching lips, making our kiss wet. Suddenly, I heard a beep. Then more beeps, growing louder and more frequent, pulling the surrounding noise and shouts back into my ears. I stared blankly upward, seeing the monitor's line leap back into a steady rhythm. Soon, I was pushed out of the rescue circle by my colleagues. 18. When Hollis woke up, I happened to be by his side. He opened his eyes and fixed his gaze on me, speaking with great effort. You saved me. I nodded, my vision blurring instantly. Don't cry, Hollis said hoarsely. I roughly wiped my face and said coldly, they're tears of joy. Now that you're awake, we can proceed with the divorce. Hollis closed his eyes, frowned, and said, you don't mean that, do you? What? He smiled faintly, struggling, and whispered, I heard everything you said in the ER. You said, we wouldn't divorce. I refused to yield. You don't keep your word either, saying you'd show up on time that day to register. Hollis blinked, trying to charm me. I saved you once. You saved me once. I lied to you once. You lied to me once. We're even now. Okay. He reached out from under the blanket, gently hooking my pinky finger. He said, hello, I'm Hollis, the alpha forcibly matched to you by the Alliance Council. Nice to meet you. You're my omega. I couldn't help but smile and replied, hello, I'm Casper, the omega forcibly matched to you by the Alliance Council. Sorry I hid from you that I'm your alpha until you forgive me. Hollis said, as you command.